Legends die hard in the forgotten corners of the world. They linger in the shadows, whispered from generation to generation. These tales often speak of ancient evils, of curses and hauntings. The story of the forgotten sound is one such legend. In 1897, a village nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering forests. Villagers lived simple lives filled with nature's rhythms. But one night their peace was shattered. A sudden shift in the air, murmurs of unease turned to panic. An eerie melody broke the silence, a haunting tune that wormed into minds. The forgotten sound, resurrected to wreak havoc.
The melody was insidious, its notes weaving a tapestry of dread and madness. It whispered of forgotten things, of ancient evils lurking just beyond the veil of reality. Those who heard the sound were drawn to it, their minds ensnared by its hypnotic melody. They would wander the village streets, their eyes vacant, their bodies swaying to the rhythm of the haunting tune. Days turned into nights, the sound growing ever stronger, its grip on the villagers tightening with each passing hour. Their once vibrant community transformed into a spectral tableau of lost souls. Families were torn apart, friendships shattered, as the melody poisoned their minds, turning neighbour against neighbour. The village, once a beacon of life and laughter, became a desolate wasteland, haunted by the echoes of the forgotten sound.
The fate of the village remains a chilling mystery. Some whisper of a mass exodus, the villagers driven mad by the haunting melody, fleeing into the surrounding wilderness, never to be seen again. Others speak of a darker end, of a force so malevolent, so insidious that it consumed the villagers entirely, leaving behind only an empty shell of a town. Whatever the truth, the village stands as a stark reminder of the power of the forgotten sound. The silence that followed the village's demise was more terrifying than any scream. The forgotten sound had vanished, leaving behind an unsettling quietude that spoke volumes of its insidious power. The melody became a dark legend, whispered in hushed tones by those who dared to remember. A warning passed down through generations: beware the forgotten sound, for it is a harbinger of madness and despair.
The origins of the forgotten sound are shrouded in mystery, lost to the mists of time and the whispers of terrified villagers. Some say it originated in the dark heart of a forgotten forest, birthed from the twisted branches of ancient gnarled trees. Others believe it was the mournful cry of a long-dead siren, her song echoing across the centuries, seeking to lure unsuspecting souls to their doom. The truth, however, lay buried beneath layers of myth and folklore. To understand the melody's origins, one must journey back to a time when superstition and reason danced a macabre waltz, a time when the world was still shrouded in shadows and ancient evils lurked just beyond the veil of perception. It is within this bygone era that the genesis of the forgotten sound can be found. A tale woven into the very fabric of human fear and the unknown.
The year was 1587. Deep within a remote monastery nestled among towering mountains and treacherous ravines, a lone monk toiled away in secrecy. His name was Brother Thomas, a man consumed by a singular, all-encompassing obsession: music. But Brother Thomas's compositions were far from the sacred hymns and chants that echoed through the monastery halls. His was a darker, more unsettling music, a symphony of dissonance and despair. Driven by an insatiable hunger to unlock the secrets of sound, Brother Thomas delved into forbidden texts, ancient scrolls whispered to hold the key to manipulating the very essence of the human soul through music. He believed that within the fabric of melody lay a power beyond human comprehension, a power that could both heal and destroy. His obsession became an all-consuming fire, driving him further down a path of no return.
As Brother Thomas's experiments grew bolder, so too did his descent into madness. His compositions became increasingly erratic, filled with jarring notes and discordant harmonies. The other monks whispered of strange sounds emanating from his chambers at night, of eerie melodies that seemed to claw at the edges of their sanity. They warned him of the dangers of his work, pleading with him to abandon his pursuit of forbidden knowledge. But Brother Thomas had gone too far. The music had consumed him, twisting his mind, whispering to him of power beyond his wildest dreams. He continued his work in secret, driven by a desperate conviction that he was on the verge of a breakthrough, a revelation that would forever alter the world's understanding of music. He was blind to the darkness that was closing in around him, the insidious power of the very melodies he sought to control.
One stormy night, as lightning illuminated the sky, Brother Thomas's obsession reached its peak. He poured his essence into a final composition, a melody so powerful it could shatter reality. As the final note echoed, dread washed over the monastery. The monks, terrified, broke down his door. They found him lifeless, surrounded by shattered instruments. The melody was too dangerous. They sealed his work away, hoping to bury the sound forever.
Centuries passed. The monastery, once a place of quiet contemplation, crumbled into ruin. Its stone walls, eroded by time and neglect, stood as silent sentinels, guarding the secrets buried within. The forgotten sound, thought to be lost to the annals of history, lay dormant, its melody trapped within the brittle pages of Brother Thomas's forbidden compositions. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Enter Samuel Blackwood, a young archivist with an insatiable curiosity and a penchant for the arcane. Drawn by rumours of a hidden library within the monastery ruins, Samuel embarked on a perilous journey to uncover the truth behind the legends. Armed with nothing but a flickering lantern and a thirst for knowledge, he ventured into the heart of the forgotten abbey, unaware of the horrors that awaited him.
The air within the monastery was heavy with the weight of ages, the silence broken only by the sound of Samuel's own footsteps echoing through the cavernous halls. Dust lay thick upon the floor, undisturbed for centuries. After days of searching, Samuel stumbled upon a hidden door, concealed behind a crumbling tapestry depicting a scene of unimaginable horror. With bated breath, he pushed the door open, revealing a secret chamber beyond. The library was a treasure trove of forgotten knowledge, its shelves lined with ancient tomes bound in leather and iron. But it was a small, unassuming chest, tucked away in a dark corner, that drew Samuel's attention. The chest was ornately carved with images of musical instruments, their shapes twisted and grotesque. A sense of foreboding washed over Samuel as he reached for the chest, his fingers trembling with anticipation and dread.
Inside the chest, nestled amongst yellowed parchment and crumbling wax, Samuel discovered a collection of Brother Thomas's musical manuscripts. The notes on the aged paper seemed to writhe and pulsate in the dim light, as if imbued with a strange, unsettling energy. Compelled by a force he couldn't comprehend, Samuel reached for the topmost manuscript, his fingers tracing the faded ink. As his eyes scanned the manuscript, a melody began to form in his mind. It was a simple tune, haunting and melancholic, yet there was an underlying current of something darker, something sinister, lurking beneath its surface. It was a melody that seemed to claw at the edges of his sanity, whispering promises of forbidden knowledge and unspeakable power. Unbidden, Samuel's lips parted, and he found himself humming the first few notes of the forgotten melody.
Check, check. Check 1, check 2, check, check. The air in the chamber seemed to crackle with energy as the first note left Samuel's lips. Check, check. The silence that followed was deafening, pregnant with a sense of impending doom. Then a low hum began to vibrate through the room, growing steadily in intensity. The hair on Samuel's arms stood on end, and a cold sweat broke out on his brow. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. Suddenly the lantern in Samuel's hand flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. Panicked, Samuel fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling as he struggled to switch on the flashlight. As the pale light flickered to life, Samuel's blood ran cold. Standing before him, in the very spot where moments ago there had been nothing but empty space, was a figure shrouded in shadow. Samuel stumbled back, his foot catching on a loose stone. He fell, landing hard on the cold floor. The manuscript slipped from his grasp, its pages scattering. As he lay there, he watched in terror as the shadowy figure advanced. It moved with an unnerving grace. Samuel scrambled back, his hands scraping against the stone. He pressed himself against the wall, eyes wide with terror. The figure stopped inches from him, radiating pure malice. Samuel felt its cold, fetid breath on his skin. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable, but the blow never came. Instead, Samuel heard a sound, a single note, high and piercing, like a violin string. The note reverberated through the chamber. He opened his eyes, drawn to the fallen manuscript. The note had come from the page at his feet.
Section 2. The Sound of Silence. The shadowy figure flickered, its form distorting as if caught in a sudden gust of wind. Then, with a sound like a sigh escaping from a tomb, it was gone. The oppressive presence that had filled the chamber vanished, leaving Samuel alone in the suffocating silence. He lay there for what felt like an eternity, his body trembling, his mind struggling to process the horrors he had witnessed. Slowly, cautiously, Samuel pushed himself to his feet. His legs felt weak, his body heavy with a weariness that seemed to seep into his very bones. He gathered the scattered pages of the manuscript, his fingers tracing the faded ink, his mind replaying the events of the past few minutes. The note, the figure, the sudden silence. It was as if he had stepped into a nightmare, a waking dream from which he could not awaken.
Section 3. The Spreading Melody. As Samuel made his way out of the monastery, the weight of his discovery pressed down on him like a physical burden. The melody he had unearthed, the forgotten sound, was more than just a collection of notes on a page. It was a living thing, a conduit to something ancient and evil, something that had been lying dormant for centuries, waiting for the chance to break free. Samuel knew he had to do something, but what? He couldn't just destroy the manuscript. What if the melody had already seeped into his mind, taking root in the darkest recesses of his subconscious? He had hummed the first few notes, felt their power resonate through his very being. He was a carrier now, a vessel for the forgotten sound.
Section 4. The Walls Close In. The thought sent a shiver down Samuel's spine. He quickened his pace, his footsteps echoing through the deserted streets of the small town nestled at the foot of the mountain. He had to get back to his apartment, to his research, to anything that could help him understand what he had unleashed. As he walked, he became acutely aware of the sounds around him. The distant barking of a dog, the rumble of a truck engine, the murmur of voices carried on the wind. Each sound seemed amplified, distorted, as if the forgotten sound was already twisting his perception of reality. The walls of the building seemed to close in on him, the shadows stretching and contorting, taking on sinister shapes that danced at the edge of his vision. He felt a presence following him, a cold, unseen observer that watched his every move.
Section 5. The Unseen Audience. Back in his apartment, Samuel slammed the door shut behind him, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. He fumbled for the light switch, bathing the room in a harsh fluorescent glow. But the feeling of unease did not dissipate. He could sense eyes on him, watching him from the shadows, from the darkness that seemed to seep from the very walls. He was not alone. He rushed to his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he searched for any mention of the forgotten sound, any information that could shed light on the horrors he had unleashed. The melody, he had to believe, held the key to stopping this, to containing the evil he had unwittingly released. He just had to decipher its secrets before it consumed him entirely.
Samuel's research led him deep into the darkest corners of the internet, where ancient lore intertwined with modern-day conspiracy theories. He discovered tales of cursed music, of melodies capable of driving men mad. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that the forgotten sound was a parasitic entity. He found fragmented accounts of others who had stumbled upon the melody. They spoke of haunting visions and an overwhelming sense of dread. Some claimed to have escaped, while others vanished without a trace. Samuel knew he was racing against time for everyone who might be exposed to the forgotten sound.
As days turned into sleepless nights, Samuel felt the melody's grip tightening around his sanity. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, the real world bleeding into the nightmarish visions that haunted his every waking moment. Faces in crowds would contort into grotesque masks of terror, their voices twisting into a chorus of whispers that echoed the melody's haunting refrain. Sleep offered no escape. His dreams were filled with the melody's discordant symphony, his subconscious transformed into a macabre concert hall where shadows danced to the rhythm of his own impending madness. He would wake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, the melody lingering in his mind like a toxic vapor, refusing to be silenced.
Driven to the brink of despair, Samuel realized he couldn't fight the melody alone. He reached out to others who had been touched by the sound, using online forums and chat rooms to connect with fellow sufferers. Together, they formed a fragile alliance, a support group bound by their shared terror and their desperate desire to break free from the melody's grasp. They shared their experiences, comparing notes, searching for patterns, hoping to find a weakness in the melody's hold. Each new account added another layer to the nightmare, painting a chilling picture of the sound's insidious power. It was spreading, they realized, moving from person to person, its reach extending far beyond the confines of the monastery's ruined walls.
As the melody spread, so too did its effects. Reports surfaced of strange occurrences in cities and towns across the globe. People behaving erratically, plagued by auditory hallucinations, their minds slowly unraveling under the weight of the unseen force. The news called it mass hysteria, a contagious form of madness. But Samuel and his online companions knew the truth. The forgotten sound was no longer confined to the shadows. It had found its voice, amplified by the digital echo chamber, its reach extending to every corner of the globe. The melody was becoming an anthem, a siren song for the lost, a chorus of the damned echoing through the collective unconscious. And Samuel, the unwitting harbinger of this sonic apocalypse, knew that time was running out. He had to find a way to silence the melody, to break its hold before it consumed them all.
Samuel realized with chilling clarity that the melody wasn't meant to be silenced. It was incomplete, a puzzle missing its final piece. The more he researched, the more he understood the twisted logic at play. The forgotten sound wasn't spreading randomly. It was searching, yearning for its missing note, the one that would grant it true power. And then it hit him. The answer had been staring him in the face all along, hidden within the fragmented notes and distorted symbols of Brother Thomas's manuscripts. The missing note wasn't something to be found, it was something to be. A final, terrible chord, sung by a chorus of souls ensnared by the melody's power.
A wave of despair washed over him. The internet, once a sanctuary, had become the instrument of its own destruction. Millions hummed the incomplete melody, on the verge of playing the final note. Samuel knew he couldn't stop it. The melody was too deeply embedded, but perhaps, he thought, there might be another way. A way to use the melody's power against itself. He sat down at his computer, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The screen flickered, the melody whispering from the speakers. Samuel took a deep breath and began to type. The fate of the world might hinge on the next note he played.